Hello and welcome to our webinar today. We'll begin getting started momentarily. We're just going to wait for the viewers to join. Thank you so much for joining. So I see that we've got viewers that have joined. So again, thank you so much for joining. So today's session, we'll be going over how to open up an account at Gemini Cryptocurrency Exchange for your self-directed IRA LLC. So we will be going over this topic in detail. Hopefully you find this to be a helpful topic. And I would please ask you to please like and subscribe to our channel. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for notifications of our weekly webinars. If you're watching this video on a recording, you can expand the description on the YouTube post, and you will be able to jump ahead to different points in the webinar. We'll insert chapters. So you can also ask questions in the chat as you're going through this. If you're watching on a recording, you can ask questions in the comments and we get back to those questions within 24 business hours. So this slide right here gives us an overview of today's topic, which again is an A to Z guide of how to open up an account at Gemini for your self-directed IRA LLC. So we'll start with the basics just to set the foundation in terms of what is cryptocurrency, as well as how to establish an IRA LLC generally. And then we're going to go through the application and the online screenshots of setting up an account at Gemini. And then we'll talk about some practical considerations when it comes to investing in cryptocurrency generally. So please don't hesitate to ask questions as we go through things, and I'll be answering those questions here during this presentation. So to lay the foundation in terms of what cryptocurrency is, the IRS Revenue Ruling 2019-24 tells us that virtual currency is really a type of, or cryptocurrency is really a type of virtual currency that uses cryptography to secure transactions. So the technology is often referred to as blockchain. So popular cryptocurrencies are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, etc. So that's sort of the foundation in terms of what it is. In terms of the taxation of cryptocurrency, the IRS has issued guidance that cryptocurrency was going to be treated as property for federal tax purposes. So if we think about that in terms of inside of a retirement account, as well as outside of a retirement account, and I see that we've got some comments and questions already. Thank you so much. We'll address those in a moment. So in terms of the IRS view on cryptocurrency and how they will tax it, they again view it as property. So that means that income or gains from the property, if you're investing in cryptocurrency outside of a 401k or an IRA or outside of a retirement account, it's going to be subject to capital gains tax rates. So that could be short-term or long-term, depending on how long you've held the asset. In terms of inside of a retirement account, just like any gains or income on property that you hold inside of your retirement account, those gains are tax deferred and even potentially tax-free if you're investing through a Roth account. So, for example, if you have a Roth IRA LLC. Now, one possible exception is when it comes to cryptocurrency mining or Bitcoin mining, because this may be considered an active trade or business. So if you invest your IRA LLC funds in mining cryptocurrency, the income generated by that activity may be subject to unrelated business income tax. So that's going to, of course, be payable by your retirement account and be an exception to the general rule that when you're investing in cryptocurrency inside a retirement account, the gains or the income is tax deferred and may be tax free, like I said, if it's a Roth account. So we do have a question. We'll go ahead and knock that out. So if you already open a solo 401k, do you need to open an IRA LLC? So if you have a solo 401k through us, where our solo 401k is an IRS approved plan that allows you to invest in alternative investments, including cryptocurrency, you don't need an IRA LLC to invest the funds that are in your solo 401k. Now, if you have Roth IRA money, you're not going to be able to transfer it over to the solo 401k because you can't transfer funds from a Roth IRA to any type of 401k, including a solo 401k. So if you want to invest those Roth IRA funds in cryptocurrency, then certainly the Roth IRA LLC would be a way to do that. And so these slides here are going to be very helpful in terms of doing that, specifically at an account at Gemini. So now let's turn to investing in cryptocurrency via self-directed IRA LLC. So we're going to again talk about the steps of how to set up an IRA LLC, and then more specifically opening up an account for your LLC at Gemini. So one thing that's important to understand as we go through this is the point that's on this slide, is that the cryptocurrency account is opened up in the name of the LLC, which is owned by the IRA. It's not opened up in the name of the IRA. So you're really going to have an IRA that owns an LLC, and then the LLC is investing in the investment, specifically here, cryptocurrency. So keep that in mind as we go through these slides. So now we'll dig a little deeper and go through some of the steps, and we'll be revisiting this just to really emphasize those steps. But this slide here is helpful to illustrate what's happening. So you're first opening up a self-directed IRA, and so it needs to be an IRA at an IRA trust or custodian that's going to allow you to invest in alternative investments, specifically a brand new LLC that we would be setting up as part of our services. So you need to fund that IRA, step 2, so you can roll money over from a pre-existing retirement account. For example, if you have a former employer plan and you want to roll the money into a traditional IRA, or let's say you have a Roth IRA, but it's at Vanguard or Fidelity or Schwab, someplace where you can't invest it in a brand new LLC. So you would open up a self-directed IRA at one of these specialty trusts or custodians that will allow you to invest in alternative investments. You'll fund it by rolling over money, or you could fund it by making contributions if you're eligible to do so. Then you'll set up the LLC, which we handle as part of our services. You'll open up an LLC bank account at the bank of your choice. And from our perspective with our clients, we provide everything that you need to do that. So that's the articles, the EIN. Then you fund that LLC bank account. So these custodians will require certain investment documents. And oftentimes they require you to work with an approved facilitator like us. And so we prepare the paperwork that you need, that the custodian requires, so that you can transfer the money from the IRA over to the LLC bank account. Once it's in that LLC bank account, step 5 is you purchase the cryptocurrency. Now, typically, the way you do that is at an exchange. So you need to have an account at an exchange, like Gemini. So that's where these next set of slides, as we go through this presentation, are going to really illustrate how to do that. So again, just to break it down, you open up the self-directed IRA at a specialty custodian, like Forge Trust is a very popular example because their process is very streamlined and their pricing is very economical. It's got to be one, again, that allows you to invest in an LLC. Some of the specialty self-directed IRA custodians offer IRAs that allow you to invest in alternative investments, but won't allow you to invest in an LLC. So you got to make sure you work with the right custodian. And we've got presentations about choosing a good custodian, et cetera. So you can dig into those if you, again, subscribe to the channel, and you can check out those videos. You fund the self-directed IRA. So oftentimes that's rolling over money from an existing account, but you could make contributions. And then you work with a company like us that will set up the LLC, prepare all the documents that the custodian requires. so that you can fund that LLC account, as well as, of course, has experience in investing in what you want to invest in, like cryptocurrency. You have the LLC, you open the LLC bank account, and that's again going to be a bank account at the bank of your choice. You fund that LLC bank account, and then lastly, you invest the funds in cryptocurrency by opening up an account in the name of the LLC at a cryptocurrency exchange like Gemini. And of course, the bank account, as well as the account at the cryptocurrency exchange, needs to be opened up in the name of the LLC, not the IRA, and it needs to be opened up under the EIN number of the LLC. Now, we've sprinkled in some tidbits in this slide, some real points of emphasis. So the first one here is, again, using the EIN for the LLC. So that's for the bank account, that's for the cryptocurrency account, that are both opened up in the name of the LLC and the corresponding EIN. Again, in the name of the LLC. When it comes to storage of the cryptocurrency, if you're going to store it in a physical wallet, you store it in a physical wallet in a safety deposit box associated with that LLC bank account. And then lastly, of course, you're not going to be combining with personal funds. So if you have non-retirement money that you want to invest in cryptocurrency and you want to do that in your own name, you need to do it totally separate. So that would be in an account in your name, or it could be a different entity that you have, but it's not going to be this LLC, which is owned by your IRA. That's prohibited. If you want to put money that's non-retirement money into your IRA and you're eligible to make a contribution, you can do that, but you wouldn't put it into the LLC. You would put it into the IRA and then have the IRA invested into the LLC. Good question. So yes, all the info so far is good generic information that just applies generally to setting up a self-directed IRA LLC and investing in cryptocurrency. The later slides, we're really going to be looking specifically at the Gemini application. And of course, that would be specific to Gemini. So just to, again, set the foundation, if you're new to the IRA LLC concept, it's oftentimes referred to as a self-directed IRA LLC. The LLC is 100% owned by an IRA or a combination of IRAs. And it really stems from a court case which confirmed that the initial investment in the LLC by an IRA was not a prohibited transaction. So that's really the foundation from a regulatory perspective in terms of the transaction. One of the main features or reasons that people set up IRA LLCs is to invest in alternative investments, whether that's cryptocurrency. Of course, it could be many other types of investments like real estate or notes, private companies. You end up with checkbook control. That's another reason that people set up the IRA LLC, is because you are the manager of the LLC, which is owned by your IRA. So remember, your money is going to first go from the IRA at the specialty custodian to a bank account in the name of the LLC. So as the manager of the LLC, you'll have check writing authority, checkbook control over that money. So you might transfer some of the money to an account at Gemini to invest in cryptocurrency, and other money that's in your IRA LLC, you could use that to maybe make a loan to an unrelated person. And you would use that checkbook to make that loan and fund that loan. Another reason that people use the LLC structure is to really get the trust company at arm's length, because you will have direct checkbook control over your money, as opposed to a structure where you have your funds in an IRA at one of these specialty custodians and they hold your money. Under that structure, you need to go back to the custodian to make an investment. So if you want to loan funds from your IRA to an unrelated person, you go back to the custodian and then you have to work with them to have them fund the loan. Whereas if you have the direct checkbook control, you can move much quicker. And of course, if you go with the model where the custodian holds your money, then they're going to, of course, not only take time, but also have processing fees, etc. So to really circumvent that, or at least avoid it, because from the custodian's perspective, your IRA investment will be the LLC. So you will have that, again, direct checkbook control at the LLC level. And so just to reiterate the process, just to make sure we're on the same page, we've got the organization, the articles of organization filed with the state. We obtain the EIN number for the LLC. We draft the LLC operating agreement that contains the required IRA and IRS language. Then once the IRA account is open and funded at the specialty trust company or custodian, you'll be able to wire the money, step 6, to an LLC bank account and really fund that LLC with your self-directed IRA funds. So now we could turn to the Gemini application process. But before we get started, we'll take a look at some of these questions. So thank you so much for asking the questions. Please don't hesitate to ask questions as we go through this. And of course, if you're watching on a recording, you can ask questions in the comments and we will respond within 24 business hours. So if I open an LLC account at a crypto exchange that pays interest on BTC like BlockFi, are there any pitfalls with that? So that's a great question. The concept of receiving interest on your cryptocurrency is potentially murky, and it goes back to the way that the IRS treats cryptocurrency, which is as personal property. So if you had funds, of course, if you had currency in a bank account that paid interest, that is something where that's commonly understood. So it's a bit of a disconnect, right? Because now you have cryptocurrency where the market is really treating that investment as if it's traditional currency, fiat money, where they're paying interest on, like if you had money at a savings account in a bank, right? The problem is that from a taxation perspective, or the potential problem that makes it murky is that from a taxation perspective, the fact that the IRS treats it as property raises the question of whether you'll have the proper tax records with respect to receiving interest on someone holding your property. So hopefully that helps give you some information in response to that good question. So now let's focus on the Gemini application. So the starting point is going to the Gemini website to register for an institutional account. We've got the address listed here, and you can type that into your browser and go right to that page. So the first screen that you'll see on that page is going to be this screen here, where you need to first submit some initial information. So you're going to want to enter the name of the LLC. There's going to be a company type list where you can choose personal or private investment vehicle. You're going to enter your name, your email address, your location, and then hit continue. Then you will be presented with an option to download the institutional account application. They've got another application here. You want to choose the institutional account application. So that'll give you a PDF. And then you'll open that PDF and we'll start to see the screens here. So the first page where you have to enter content in the PDF, they've got a lot of disclosures, et cetera, that you want to take a look at. But the first page is where you'll enter content is you'll enter the name of the LLC, where it says full legal company name. Of course, there's no DBA because this is just an investment vehicle. So you don't have a DBA like you might if you have an LLC for a business. You're going to enter the address of the LLC. Typically, that's your address. You're going to enter the state where the LLC was formed. So is it formed in California? Is it formed in Colorado? Is it formed in North Carolina? Whatever the case may be. So you're going to enter the EIN that you have for that LLC, which of course we obtain that as part of our services. You will enter your phone number. You're going to enter the date that the LLC was formed. So you would see that typically listed on the articles of organization, or if you look up the LLC on the Secretary of State database, they'll have the date of formation listed there. You want to skip these fields. So CRD, MPID, NFID, LEI, all of those are not applicable. And then you want to enter your name, phone, and email as the principal contact person. Then you'll keep going through the application. You'll see a field for nature of the business of the company. So here, enter IRA LLC investment account. Skip the website field. Obviously, there's no website for an investment LLC. This is not a business. This next field or this next question may or may not apply, where it's asking about associations that the company may have with previous or current accounts with Gemini. Here, if you already have a non-retirement account at Gemini, you could choose to list it there. The next question is asking about the bank account that's going to be linked to this LLC. So it's asking, will the company be linking a bank account from any jurisdiction other than the jurisdiction of incorporation? So if the bank account for your LLC is in the same state, let's say it's North Carolina, that the LLC was formed, let's say this LLC was also formed in North Carolina, then you would enter no. But if the bank account's in a different state than the state of formation, then you enter that, then you would say yes and list the additional jurisdiction. For these next set of questions, the answer is no in the context of an IRA LLC investment. Okay, please don't hesitate to ask questions if we go through this, and we can always go back if there's questions that we missed. But we'll keep going. So this next question is asking whether or not the company is required to register as a money transmitter or money service business. So the answer is no, and they ask you to explain why or how this determination was made. So here you would explain that the sole purpose of the LLC is to invest my own IRA funds. Or of course, if you have multiple people, then you could say our own IRA funds. So say if you have a husband and wife that are both investing their IRA funds in one single LLC. So is the company required to establish and maintain a BSA or AML program? There, the answer is no. The next question is asking for the jurisdiction or jurisdictions of business activity. Here you would enter the state where the LLC is registered. So in our example, let's say it's North Carolina, unless you live in a different state, and in that case, enter the state where you live. Then the last set of questions here, you really want to answer this to the best of your ability in terms of trading volume, funding activity, funding patterns, etc. So just, of course, you want to be as truthful as possible and just answer it to the best of your ability. We'll skip ahead in the application, and you'll see sections where you will enter the authorized user. So that's you. So you want to enter your personal information. For role and description, you enter LLC manager. Now note, if there's more than one authorized user, let's assume it's, again, the husband and wife situation, where each person is acting as a manager, then you would complete this for each person. And they have space to enter more than one authorized user. Then you'll skip ahead in the application, and there's a section asking about the beneficial owners. So this again is you. So you would enter your personal information here. Now, when it comes to which is all self-explanatory in terms of the personal information. So when it comes to the indirect beneficial ownership, you want to skip direct, but put in indirect because you own this through your IRA. You would enter 100% if the LLC is just owned by you through your IRA account or accounts. So even if you have a pre-tax IRA and a Roth IRA, but it's only your IRAs, you would enter 100% because ultimately it's you. Now, if the LLC is owned by IRA accounts of one or more, or two or more persons, again, let's go with the simple husband and wife example. Then you would want to put the applicable ownership percentage. So if 60% of the money came from the wife's IRA and 40% came from the husband's IRA, you would enter the applicable indirect beneficial ownership percentages that apply. So in that case, 60 for this wife, and 40 for the husband. Now you'll see in the application that there are sections for beneficial owner's entity as opposed to individual. So just skip those sections, because ultimately the LLC is not owned by another entity. It's not owned for the benefit of another entity. So really what we're getting at here is you. They want to know who you are as the beneficial owner and more information about that. So, and we got a question here. So let's go back. Let's see. My LLC manager name is something like John Doe, legal owner. So let's go back to that slide. So here we've got the authorized user, role and description, enter LLC manager. And your question here is, my LLC manager name is something like John Doe, legal owner via non-trust custodial IRA. So it is acceptable to put that, but what really is going to be fine is just if you put LLC manager. So because in that case, I'm assuming John Doe is you. So it's not another person as the manager, in other words. Hopefully that helps. In other words, you don't have to write in your title as if you're signing a document on behalf. Just let them know that you're the manager of the LLC. So now we finished the beneficial owners. Now we're on to the sanctions representation section that you need to read and sign off on. So you would just simply enter your name, enter your title. So that's manager again, sign and date it. Then in the same page on the application, there's another section to read and sign. Again, name, title is manager, sign and date it. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the application. So you do need to submit additional documentation. So now let's go through that list. So you're going to need to submit identification for all beneficial owners and authorized signers. So that would be, your driver's license or a passport. You want to submit a copy of the articles of organization and the operating agreement. We, of course, provide that as part of our IRA LLC documents. Submit a signed W-9 form. And on the next slide, we'll talk about the W-9 form in a second. And then they ask about the source of wealth. So here, you would want to provide a copy of the LLC bank account statement. And if applicable, so if you save the money as an employee, right? Let's say it was a former employer plan. This is a retirement account, right? So which are typically for employees or self-employed persons. So you would submit related documents to that employment or self-employment. So that could be something like a pay stub. You could have a screenshot of your LinkedIn profile. If you're a professional, let's say you're a lawyer, you could provide evidence of your membership in a professional association, etc. This is, of course, a part of Gemini's Know Your Customer requirements. So now let's turn to the W-9 and dig a little deeper there. So here we've got a screenshot showing how to complete the W-9 for an IRA LLC. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You've got box 1, the name of the IRA LLC. Box 2 is not applicable. Check individual or single member LLC, assuming that this is just one IRA that owns the LLC. The address of the IRA LLC. The Social Security number field is not applicable. Instead, you're going to list the EIN of the LLC, and then you sign and date it as the manager. So again, please don't hesitate to ask questions, but we'll keep going through the slides. So that really takes us to the end of the documentation that Gemini needs. And they'll provide options for you to upload that information and the supporting documentation, so their application, etc. So once the account is open, you're going to be funding the account, of course, with fiat dollars, so US dollars. So the cryptocurrency exchange requirements are that the funding account, meaning the bank account where the money is coming from to fund the account at the cryptocurrency exchange, the name on that account needs to match the name on the account at the cryptocurrency exchange. So in other words, it's got to be the cryptocurrency exchange account needs to be funded from an LLC bank account. Now, I do note that Gemini would allow the account to be funded. Some of the cryptocurrency exchanges, that's exactly what their requirement is. Gemini does allow the account to be funded from an account in the name of the beneficial owner. So while that might be acceptable to Gemini, it's not acceptable under the IRA LLC rules. Because remember, the LLC account, in this case, it's going to be an LLC cryptocurrency exchange account, needs to be funded from the IRA. So if you put money in from your personal account, even though Gemini will allow you to do that, that is not consistent with the IRA LLC requirements. And so we've got a good question here. We've got it answered. So now, of course, we've seen processing times go up and down as there is, of course, a tremendous amount of interest in cryptocurrency, just generally. Of course, Gemini is not just processing accounts for IRA LLCs. What we typically see is about 2 weeks, though, to give you a sense. Now, let's turn to this next slide where we've got some practical tips when it comes to investing IRA LLC funds in cryptocurrency. So first off, and we've touched on these, but we really just want to emphasize that it is quite important that the account at the cryptocurrency exchange is opened up under the name and EIN of the LLC that's owned by your IRA. Practically speaking, this is because of tax reporting that might be done by the exchange. So if you were to open up that LLC account under, say, your Social Security number, and the cryptocurrency exchange were to report transactions made in that account to the IRS, they would do it under your Social Security number. So that's going to create issues because now the IRS is going to expect that you are going to report transactions on your personal tax return. And of course, you wouldn't be doing that because this is inside of your IRA, which, as we saw from the outset, it's tax deferred. So it is quite important, therefore, that the account is set up under the name and EIN of the LLC. When it comes to funding the account, when you choose a cryptocurrency exchange generally, you want to confirm that the account can be funded with fiat money. Gemini, of course, yes, it can. But some of these other cryptocurrency exchanges don't allow you to fund the account with fiat money. So, of course, you're going to need to fund it with US dollars. And so you want to make sure you're working with an exchange that allows that. You're going to wire funds from a bank account in the name of the LLC that's owned by your IRA to the account at the exchange. As we mentioned, you're not going to fund it with personal or from an account that's in your name personally. That's not consistent with those IRA LLC rules. If you want to roll over or make contributions to the IRA account, you can do that, but you need to do it at the IRA level, not at the LLC level. Remember, the LLC is owned by your IRA, and you make contributions to the IRA. If you're going to store the cryptocurrency in a physical wallet, you would do that in a safety deposit box associated with that LLC bank account. And we've got some good comments here about opening up an account, and I see that your feedback is that it's taking longer than the 2 weeks. So, and like I mentioned, that is consistent. I mean, it definitely ebbs and flows, and there's a lot of interest, as of course we know, in cryptocurrency. So I'm sure that they're doing their best to process applications, but of course, processing times can increase. So the next or the final bullet on this slide is when it comes to private transactions. So this would be where you are investing in cryptocurrency outside of the context of an exchange. So you want to confirm that the seller or the buyer is not a disqualified person, so that you're not committing a prohibited transaction. Make sure that you don't tie the transaction with, say, cryptocurrency that you're buying or selling with your non-retirement funds or non-retirement held cryptocurrency, so that you don't violate the IRA investment rules. So that takes us to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for everyone's participation and the good questions. We have more time if you have more questions to ask, and we can go through them. Otherwise, again, I would ask you to please like this video and please subscribe for more videos like this. And you can ask questions in the comments, and we'll answer those questions within 24 business hours. If you're watching as a recording, I don't see any more questions. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And oh, we got a question. Great. That's correct. You definitely don't want to pool, or you need to keep your, so the question is about storage in a physical wallet. You definitely want to have a separate physical wallet so that you can ensure that you're keeping things separate and segregated, and sitting in a safety deposit box at the bank of the LLC is going to be advisable. So hopefully that helps. Again, thank you for the questions, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.